When you watch the PGA Tour or any major championship on TV, it is hard not to notice how far pro golfers hit the ball. Their drives always seem to go miles, and I don't know about you, but I'm always checking myself to think whether I indeed have heard the commentator correctly, that they are actually hitting that high an iron for that 200 plus yard approach shot. So in this video, we're going to take a detailed look at the stats to confirm just how far the pros hit each club, to not only let you compare your own hitting distances against the very best, but also highlight how the top players in the world have up to 5 different yardages listed in their yardage books for different clubs. Any talk about distances must of course start with the longest club in the bag, the driver. And taking a look at the latest ShotLink stats from the PGA Tour, we can see that the Tour average currently of total distance off the tee with their driver is 298.1 yards, with Cameron Champ leading the field with an average of 320.2 yards. Moving over to carry distance, we can see that the average on the Tour currently is 282.2 yards, with Matthew Wolff this time leading the pack, averaging close to 310 yards off the tee. And for those of you who are interested, we've put together in this table the average stock carry yardages for a selection of top pros when it comes to how far they hit their driver. When it comes to how far the pros hit their fairway woods and the other longer clubs in the bag, including their hybrids, the distance analysis starts to get a bit more complicated for a couple of reasons. Firstly, the pros, like the rest of us, will be hitting a driver as far as they can 99% of the time. When it comes to fairway woods and hybrids, they can be using those clubs off the tee for approach shots and for positional shots in par 5, and may not always be aiming for their maximum yardages with those clubs. Also, different pros carry different fairway woods and hybrids. For example, 59% out of the top 100 players in the PGA Tour use one fairway wood, while 40% opt for 2. Only 37% of the top 100 in the PGA Tour use a hybrid, while 3% use 2. And while different players may use the same fairway wood and hybrids, they can be using different lofts on the same club. For example, the standard loft of a 3-wood is 15 degrees, but less than 50%, 40 out of the 96 of the top 100 who use a 3-wood stick with that standard. 15 of the players opt for a strong 3-wood with a loft of between 13 and 13.7 degrees, while 12 choose a much higher launch version of a 3-wood with a loft of 16.5 degrees. However, in spite of these complications, we took a look at different stats from TrackMan, Golf TV, Golf Digest and Golf Week to see that the average on the PGA Tour pros hit a 3-wood is a carry distance of 249 yards. By comparison, they carry a 5-wood, 235 yards, and hit a 3 hybrid, which typically measures from 19 degrees to 21 degrees, an average carry distance of 230 yards. On the LPGA Tour, meanwhile, the top women pros carry a 3-wood, 195 yards on average, a 5-wood, 185 yards, and a 7-wood, 174 yards on average. In this table, we once again take a look at a selection of PGA and LPGA Tour pros to show how far they carry their 3-woods, 5-woods and hybrid clubs, acknowledging that the lofts of the different clubs some of these players use will obviously be different to each other. Moving on to irons and looking at how far the pros hit each of them is of course a much easier task these days due to all the tracking technology that exists. However, when you see different yardages listed for pros, it's important to understand there's a lot more detail behind it. For example, if we look here at the great Tiger Woods, yardages, stock yardages from 2019, the year of his last Masters win and before his game was affected by his major car accident. While these are clear yardages for carry distance for each of his main irons, this does not tell the whole story. For example, if we take a little look at a recent exchange between 6-time major champion Nick Faldo and Lee Westwood, we can see in response to Westwood's tweet about his labelling of his stock yardages in the back of his club, Faldo gives us an insight into how much detail the pros go into, even when it comes to stock yardages, in terms of whether they're affected by altitude, whether the golf course they're playing is inland or the seaside, what type of grass they're playing on, humidity, etc. And this level of detail is again shown in a fascinating insight through Brooke Koepka's yardage book, where we can see here that Koepka lists 3 different yardages for each of his irons and an astonishing 5 different yardages for each of his wedges. When it comes to his irons, he has a 3/4 yardage, a full yardage, which would equate to his stock yardage, and a maximum yardage with the maximum distance he can feel each of his irons. And when it comes to his wedges, as I say, he has 5 different options for each of those, which just highlights the skill of all these pros and also the distance control options that they have, especially when it comes to their irons and shorter clubs. Because we don't have the detail, however, of all the different yardages that all the different pros have that they can when it comes to irons, the best we can do currently is look at the average stock carry distance that the pros average across the PGA Tour. So for example, if we then look at these at this table, we can see on average PGA pros hit a 3-iron a carry distance, the distance from strike to point of ground impact, 217 yards, 4 irons a stock distance of 208 yards, 5 irons 199 yards, 6 irons 188 yards, 7 irons 177, 8 irons, 9 irons and pitching wedges go 164, 153 and 131 yards respectively. And we can see also listed alongside the average carry distances for the LPGA Tour alongside that. And once again, taking a look at a selection of pros, we can see clearly, obviously, different pros carrying different irons in their bag, but also hitting those irons at different stock yardage based on data from the PGA Tour, TrackMan, Golf TV, Golf Digest, and Golf Week. And once again, just to be clear, all these distances are average carry distances. And finally, moving on to wedges. As a whole, PGA pros hit their pitching wedge an average distance of 141 yards. They hit 52 gap wedges, a stock carry distance of between 126 and 135 yards, and carry 56-degree sand wedges, an average distance of 119 to 124 yards. Standard 60-degree lob wedges, meanwhile, carry 95 to 105 yards on average. Taking a look, though, as we can see, at different wedge yardages for different pros, and once again, these are stock yardages, we can see that it's not always as simple as comparing a gap wedge from one player to the other, as the degrees of these clubs that each carry can be very different. And even we will find that some pros measure up to 0.5 or even 0.25 degrees difference in different wedges because they're looking and so capable of such great distance control. Amateurs, of course, don't need to go into the same level of detail as the pros. However, having a view of the stock yardages you hit each of the clubs throughout your bag will undoubtedly be a step forward to letting you choose the right club more often and avoiding the biggest mistake amateurs across all standards tend to make. Let us know in the comments if there's any other distance data that you'd like us to cover in future videos, and thanks for watching.